So everyone, welcome here on the Daniel Life, and today it's time to compare two lenses with each other. Here I'm holding the 85mm 1.4L VCM by Canon obviously, and that is the 50mm 1.4L VCM also by Canon, and we're comparing these two lenses with each other. I bought the 50mm last year on New Year's Eve for a special event, and I am a lucky owner of the 85mm, which I have in my camera bag for almost 5 weeks now. In the past I was a lucky owner of the 85mm 1.2L lens, which I luckily sold at the beginning of 25 because I kind of had the expectation that Canon would bring out a successor, not of the 1.2 version, I'm more speaking about of an 85mm, and then finally Canon announced the 85mm 1.4L VCM lens, which is half the price, half the weight, almost half the weight by the way, and it fits in almost every camera bag compared to the 85mm, which was super heavy. I had an extra compartment made out on my camera bag just for the 85mm with its lens hood. So I'm super lucky that I sold it for a good price, and here is the 85mm. Handling wise, I do have to tell you, I did not expect Canon that they were able to put an 85mm 1.4 aperture in such a small housing. And if you have a look at both of these lenses, they do look the same. If you look at these lenses here from the side, you cannot tell which lens is which. But the only thing that you feel is that the 85mm is a bit heavier than the 50mm. Speaking about the use on a gimbal, I would say that 56 grams difference can be managed by your gimbal if you're using a DJI Ronin RS4 or RS4 Pro. The 50mm weighs 580 grams, while the 85mm 636 grams. The lens hood is included in both lenses, and I've been testing both of these lenses on the Canon EOS R5 Mark II and the Canon EOS R1. So as I said, both lenses, they look identically. Both of them have the same form factor. We do have an autofocus manual focus switch on the side and one function button that I use for tracking in video mode, and in photo mode I jump between animals, humans, vehicles or nothing. We do have an aperture control ring which you have to unlock using this iris switch here on the side, and then you can turn it. The big disadvantage of all these Canon VCM lenses is that you don't get a click switch. And if you're using an older camera like the Canon EOS R5 or the Canon EOS R6, you won't be able to change the aperture in photo mode. It only works in video mode. While on the new Canon EOS R5 Mark II, R6 Mark III and the Canon EOS R1, you can change the aperture in both photo and in video mode. So what do you have to pay for the 50mm? Approximately 1,600 euros in Germany at the end of October 25, and approximately 150 euros more for the 85mm at the end of October 25. We do have excellent manual focusing capabilities on both lenses, so the focus ring runs super smoothly, and we do have an RF ring which I use to change the focus field, so the different size of the focus field. But you can also use it to change the white balance, the aperture, ISO and so on. Something I do like so much about all VCM lenses is that we have the same filter diameter, 67mm, and we come to this point later on in this video, why it's so important. The lens hood is included. So speaking about chromatic aberrations, you really have to look up for them. You really have to search deeply in your photo for chromatic aberrations. The winner lens of chromatic aberrations was in the past the 50mm 1.2 EF lens. I haven't seen any other lens that had so many chromatic aberrations like this one. So I'm quite lucky that you don't see any of that with both of these lenses. And as I said, you really have to look up for any blue or magenta looking shimmer on some edges, and if you look for them you will find some. But in general, I would say if you just have a look at your image, you won't see any of them. And if you would like to get a quick solution, use the automatic correction in Adobe Lightroom. It's a different story though when it comes to vignetting, so we're speaking about the dark corners when shooting at a fast aperture. You will see definitely hard vignettings on both lenses uncorrected, shooting wide open at f1.4. And if you stop down to approximately f4, they're almost gone, but they never really disappear. So it really doesn't matter if I shoot at 5.6 or f8, you will always see some vignetting somehow. But if you go into Adobe Lightroom correcting the vignetting, it's gone. And that's super nice that you can correct it super fast. However, you have two portrait lenses, and if you would like to draw the attention on something, vignetting can be also quite helpful because of these dark corners, and the people might look more into something that you put the focus on. That's why vignetting can be super helpful sometimes. Let's speak about flaring. I've been testing the 50mm during summer. I've been also testing the 85mm late autumn 25, where we did have some more sunlight. So if you point the lens straight into any light source, you will see some flaring. You might be also able to see some ghosting, but that's really rarely, that you see some green shimmer in some corners somehow. However, I would say if you use the lens hood and the light source is on the side and you're focusing on something else, which is not directly in that light source, you won't be able to see any lens flare. However, lens flare can be also quite nice if you want to take a couple shooting or portrait shooting. During the sunset, sun is behind, then the lens flare might look super nice. Autofocus and tracking, you won't win any prize using an old Canon EOS R or RP with both of these lenses. If you're using a newer camera like the EOS R6 Mark III, the Canon EOS R5 Mark II or the Canon EOS R1, and you use the appropriate setting, so if you have selected in the camera that you would like to take now photos of a vehicle, animal, nothing, or a human, the camera does a fantastic job. Even if someone walks in between, the camera keeps focusing on your subject. The big difference is that on a 50mm, you have more image diagonal. That means it's easier to keep things in frame and in focus. Then if you're really close with the 85mm, sometimes it's kind of hard to keep track of something if someone walks in between, for instance. Both lenses did a fantastic job in combination with an up-to-date Canon camera. Then we're speaking about sharpness, and many people complain that their lens is not sharp, and I have to tell them most of the time it's because of you. Not because of you specifically that you're watching the video, it's because of your settings. So if you don't get the right combination of ISO, shutter speed and aperture, you won't get sharp photos, as always. So if you try to take nice low light shots in a bar, for instance, using the automatic mode of your camera, don't expect too much. But if you're taking photos of something that is moving and you're using a correct shutter speed of a 500 or 1000 of a second, and you can also use a 1.4 aperture and the ISO appropriate to the light setting, you will get sharp photos. So in general, I would say extremely sharp lenses from the center to the edge, and I wouldn't use these lenses for landscape shooting at a 1.4 aperture. I would use them for landscape stopping down to at least 5.6 or f8 in order to tell you that you get a sharp image. I would stop at least down to 5.6 or f8 in order to tell you that these lenses are super sharp. Here I have the Canon EOS R5 Mark II, and I have also using these two lenses on the Canon EOS R1. The internal image stabilizer, because we don't have an optical image stabilizer on neither of these two lenses, will compensate up to 7 to 8 stops. That means you can also take a photo with a shutter speed of a second and it will still look sharp. I wouldn't use 5 seconds, therefore I would use a tripod. These shots were all taken handheld, and for my taste they look super nice. Speaking about details and macro, the minimum focusing distance of the 50mm 1.4L VCM lens is 40 centimeters. I wish it would be 30 centimeters, but you cannot have everything in life. So a brilliant lens for taking detail shots, such as food, wedding, rings, hairs, or just portraits. While the 85mm starts focusing at a distance of 75 centimeters from your camera sensor. That means you have to be further away, and the field of view is significantly less than using the 50mm. However, it's still great to take some detail shots, but if detail shots are the thing that you are focusing on, I would rather go with the 50mm. Then I thought to myself, which topic might also be interesting, and then I came to the idea, well, that's probably low light, because if you're shooting in log and you want to keep the ISO at its base, let's say 800 here on this Canon EOS R5 Mark II, shooting at a 1.4 aperture with some artificial light, you do get really nice results. 1.4 aperture also means that you can expose longer because more light is coming through that lens on your camera sensor. And if you use a camera such as the Canon EOS R6 Mark III, EOS R1 or the R5 Mark II, handheld shots are possible with a shutter speed of a second. That's fantastic because you don't always have to bring a tripod with you. So, and I guess most people would get either a 50mm or an 85mm for portrait shootings. So the 50mm gives me more the natural look that I see as a human being with an image diagonal of 46 degrees. While if you want to be closer on a wedding, for portrait shootings or in your studio, the 85mm offers you an image diagonal of 28.5 degrees. That means both of them are ideal for your studio, depending on how big your studio is. If you have a small studio, get the 50mm. If you have a really big studio, or if you do primarily outdoor shootings, get the 85mm. If you shoot a wedding inside a church, it's probably the 85mm I would go for, because you can be a bit further away, you're not disturbing the couple or the other people that's sitting around. But also the 85mm shooting at the same aperture as the 50mm, while the 85mm gives you more that telephoto lens look, which I mean in a positive way, compared to the 50mm shooting at the same aperture. Bokeh. My 50mm 1.2L lens had 10 aperture blades. There's also the 50mm 1.8 STM, which has 7 aperture blades. Then in the past I was using the RF 85mm 1.2L, which had 9 aperture blades. The macro version has also 9 aperture blades as far as I remember. And both of them have 11 aperture blades. That means you get extremely round bokeh balls for portrait shootings, for video and for nice Christmas photos. Speaking about video, it's really nice that we do have a 67mm filter diameter. Why is that good? Because you can use the same filter on the 20mm, the 24, the 35, the 50, as well as the 85, so as the 100mm macro lens. I've been using this Nissi Vario ND filter that takes away 1 to 5 stops of light. That means I can use the right shutter speed, fast aperture, ISO 800, also during daylight, not in bright sunlight though, to take really nice video clips. And all of these video clips here that you see were taken handheld. So I guess that the internal image stabilizer of my Canon EOS R5 Mark II as well as my Canon EOS R1 does a fantastic job. Image performance, brilliant. Bokeh, fantastic. Sharpness, stunning. Autofocus, depending on the camera that you're using. Super compact, fits into almost every camera bag, at least the ones that I've been using. Ideal for gimbal use with a maximum difference of just 56 grams. Same filter diameter. If you need more wide angle for your studio, for a bar, for a nightclub, for portraits, for weddings, get the 50mm. If you want to be a bit more into the action, you want to get a brilliant focal length for portraits, studio, weddings, and maybe for video or for interviews, get the 85mm. If you live in Germany and you want to get one of these two lenses, make sure to text me on Instagram or on YouTube using my email. You will get a small discount with my preferred photo dealer. So which lens are you using or are you going to use? I'm really excited to hear from your side. See you next time here on the Daniel Life, and if you would like to support my channel, you will find the power bank that charges my Canon camera, the ND filter, so as all the accessories I used to record this video, using the link in the video description. See you next time und tschüss.